Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, Tell All the Truth, but Tell It Slant. May it dazzle gradually, so that no one is left blind. And I'm going to begin with a favourite story of mine, actually. One of my favourites. So a long time ago, the king of a small country wanted to pay tribute to the emperor of China. So he sent his envoy with a gift of 3 golden statues. These golden statues were magnificent. The emperor was very excited. The king requested the emperor figure out which of the 3 identical statues was of the most valuable, the greatest value. They were identical, but one was more valuable than the other 2. So the emperor thought of various ways, including asking a jeweler to check these statues, which were identical in every way: appearance, weight, design, and workmanship. The emperor did not know what to do next. Well, the envoy waited outside for the answer. He consulted everybody in his court and everybody in his land. The envoy still waited. Still no answer. A big, huge country, powerful country like China had no way of figuring out this puzzle. How humiliating for the emperor of China. Finally, after everybody, it seemed, had been consulted, an old minister came along, a guy who was out of favour in this day and age, said that he knew a way to determine which of the 3 identical statues was the most valuable. So the emperor invited the minister and the envoy into the great hall. The old minister confidently took out 3 straws. He put one straw into the ear of a statue, and the straw came out of the other ear. Then he put the straw into the ear of a second statue, and the straw came straight out of the statue's mouth. When the minister put the straw into the third statue's ear, it disappeared. It went straight into the statue's stomach. The minister looked at the emperor and he looked at the envoy and he said, "This third statue is the most valuable." The envoy went silent. A jaw-dropping moment even, for the minister had discovered the correct answer. And why is the third statue the most valuable? Well, the first statue symbolizes that what is heard goes in one ear and straight out of the other. The second statue symbolizes that what is heard is simply repeated like a parrot. It's not digested or swallowed or taken in. So it's just what is heard is just simply repeated parrot style. So therefore no real lesson is learnt. The third statue symbolizes someone who listens intently to what is being said, and what is being said is absorbed into the stomach, digested fully and then absorbed and taken in to the core of their being, before they then pass on the information that they have not only learned but experienced themselves. And this really is why we're given 2 ears to hear and 1 mouth to speak our truth. Now here's a poem by the great Emily Dickinson. It's called Tell All the Truth, but tell it slant. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies, too bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. As lightning to the children eased with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. Now, I felt the need to speak to someone the other day. I was concerned about something, and it was one of those moments, and I thought it was best not to keep silent. That it was right, it was the right thing to do to speak up. But I did not do so wisely. I made a mistake. I was too direct, actually, and the person got very, very defensive. And as a result, what I was trying to express to them just did not reach them in one ear, out the other, I think. It was one of those moments when the truth told would have been better spoken, not confrontationally in their face, more from an angle. It is always important to be considerate of who is receiving truth when you are speaking it to them. Sometimes the truth can dazzle a little too quickly and leave everyone blind. There have been times in my life when truth has been spoken to me, life-saving, transformative truth actually, when I was able to take in the truth and when in such a place it set me free. It's been a wonderful experience. That said, there has been times when people have spoken their truth in terribly unhelpful ways, shall we say. Not that the truth didn't need to be said or heard, it wasn't heard because of the way that it was delivered. I think that consideration of others is always key to speaking truth and living the spiritual life in general. That consideration perhaps is the core of the spiritual life, consideration of the other. You need to be in a place where you can hear the truth and absorb the truth yourself and then come to your own conclusions about the truth. Sometimes if it's just delivered in your face, you don't even receive it, never mind absorb it. There are times when you will hear it and it will just pass right through you. There are times when you will hear it and not take it into yourself and just repeat what is being said, parrot other people's truth. You don't make the truth a part of you. And then there are those times when you will hear the truth, swallow the truth, absorb the truth, and make sense of that truth and bring your own truth and experience from what you have heard. It will make more than sense. And sometimes to help a person hear that truth, to absorb that truth, the way to help them get to hear the truth truly and take in the truth is to give them the truth slant. Speak the whole truth, tell the whole truth, but tell it slant. This takes time, it takes understanding it takes consideration of the person that you are delivering the truth to. There are ways to do so. Understand who is receiving it, please. So key, I have found. And it's also important to understand that the truth needs to be absorbed carefully. As Dickinson pointed out, it must dazzle gradually, or it can be blinding and overwhelming if it's all bang in your face. Consideration and understanding is vital when revealing truth. Our senses need time to adjust. It's important to understand for some people, more consideration is needed than others. You need to tread more carefully in how you communicate. We must learn to walk in their shoes to understand how they would take in information. We don't know where other people have been. That can be difficult. But try walking in their shoes. The truth can be a tricky thing, and often there's a price to pay to learn the truth. Brings to mind a rather wonderful but cautionary tale from Anthony de Mello's The Songbird. A story on the price of truth, actually. So this is The Truth Stop. Well, I could hardly believe my eyes when I saw the name of the shop. The Truth shop. They sold truth here. The salesgirl was very polite. What type of truth did I wish to purchase? Partial or whole truth? Whole truth, of course. No deceptions for me, no defences, no rationalizations. I wanted my truth plain and unadulterated. She waved me on to another side of the store where the whole truth was sold. The salesman there looked at me compassionately and pointed to the price tag. The price is very high, sir, he said. What is it? I asked, determined to get the whole truth, no matter what it might cost. Your security, sir. If you take this, he said, you will pay for it by losing all repose for the rest of your life. I walked sadly out of the store. I had thought I could have the whole truth at little cost, but I am still not ready for truth. I crave for peace and rest every now and then. I still need to deceive myself a little with my defences and rationalizations. I still seek the shelter of my unquestioned beliefs. Some people are just not ready for your truth, and so you need to be careful how you deliver it. If I have learned anything about the spiritual life, I have learned how important consideration of others is. It seems to be the heart of living spiritually alive, to consider others. I know I need to consider where the person is coming from and what they are ready for when communicating with them. Don't always follow that wisdom, by the way. And I think the world could do with thinking a little more this way, actually. In our day and age, people don't seem to consider the other when delivering their truth. Sometimes it's not helpful to be like the Yorkshireman from the Harry Enfield show, if you remember, who said, I say what I like, and I like what I ruddy well say, if you remember what he said. Like it matters not who's listening. No consideration, just blunder bust through. I know I must take heed of consideration for others when delivering to others as a minister of religion. By the way, I fall short every day. I can be as clumsy as the next person. Honesty, speaking truth in love, is vital, but so is consideration of who is to receive the truth and how to communicate with others. Put yourself in their shoes. It's important to understand when expressing truth that your truth might just be your opinion. And of course, it's vital to understand that no one has the whole of the truth. Our truths and opinions may well be conflicted by our own biases. Truth, like the three golden statues, is a gift, but it's only a gift if given in the right way. Too often the truth can end up being divisive and hurtful, actually, if delivered not in the correct way, or the thoughtful way, or the considerate way, so to say. Brings to mind the Buddhist concept of right speech or samavaka. Now, this brings to mind around divisiveness and not being divisive in our speech, actually, which seems to be the way of the world these days. Brings to mind an incident in the life of Suzuki Roshi during his days as a temple priest in Japan. One day he was outside his temple with another priest when a workman called down to them from the roof, where he was repairing the roof, and he said, "There you go, a couple of lazy priests who don't work for a living. What good are you to anyone?" Suzuki looked up at the roofer without saying anything for a while. At last, he called out to the roofer, "That temple next door has a beautiful roof." Now, it was true that the temple next door was famous for having a beautiful roof. But such a response might seem irrelevant in the context of the conversation and the insult, really. The roofer had insulted Rocher and his work and the things he did for a living, which seemed to him pointless. So it kind of seems irrelevant and somewhat distracting and evasive to respond in such a way, unless you see that the point of his remark was that Rocher was attempting to introduce into the conversation something that he and the roofer could actually agree upon. That regardless of the roofer's opinion of priests or of Rocher personally, this is something that would bring them together, something that they saw together rather than being divisive. And I think this kind of approach is something that's needed in our time to breed empathy and an understanding of one another. When we live in this divisive time where loud opinion and division seems to be the core of conversation, that people are trying to see others as othering other people, seeing them as different, this kind of tribalism that's growing all the time. You know, when Jesus came into the world, his whole concept of faith and religion was to bring the tribes together, if you like, the warring tribes, to get people to see that we have a shared common humanity, that all are brother and sister. But the way we communicate in this day and age seems to be about making the other different from us, to divide, to take sides. Oh, you're from the other side, aren't you? Because you might see things slightly differently in one area, but there may be things where we can come together. This kind of approach increases the conflict, and when you're in conflict, it's really almost impossible to hear what the other is saying, and people have to shout louder and louder just to be heard. And no truth is then taken in and absorbed. It might just maybe take in one ear and go straight out the other, or it comes in one ear and people just repeat louder and louder the views of others. No one can take in the truth of another. It's just seen as something that should be automatically rejected, and they should be rejected, dehumanized, separated, divided off, the other side, the enemy. Where's the love there? When everyone is seen, and someone who disagrees in one area of life is seen as your enemy. No one will hear each other then. It's important how we speak, it's important how we hear truth, and it's important to understand our context, really. It's always relevant context. It's important to consider who is listening when we speak our truth. And when we speak our truth, to speak it in love. And sometimes that requires us to speak it slant. Speak the whole truth, but do it slant. As Emily Dickinson said, the truth must dazzle gradually. It can shine as brightly as we want it to, but it can only do so if it does so gradually, so that our eyes, our senses, can adjust to the truth. And as Dickinson also said, it must be told with explanation kind. An undervalued word in this day and age. But if it's not told in kind, the truth will never be absorbed. It will just be rejected in one ear, straight out the other. But if it's told with explanation kind, it will encourage folk to open up to the truth, and a truth that actually is everywhere. We need to have our senses open to the whole truth in everything. For the truth is spoken and shining and dazzling in every little thing if we're awake to it, if our senses are just open to it. For truth revealed in love ought never be divisive. It must always be universal, or it's not about love. Now this brings to mind a little extract from a wonderful little book, Old Turtle and the Broken Truth by Douglas Wood. It's a beautiful story really about love, acceptance, and the nature of truth. Here's a short extract. "First, my child," said Old Turtle, "remember that there are truths all around us and within us, that twinkle in the night sky and bloom upon the earth. They fall upon us every day, silent as the snow and gentle as the rain. The people clutching their one truth forget that it is a part of all the small and lovely truths of life. They no longer see these truths. They no longer hear them. But perhaps, little one, you can." "I'll try," said the little girl. She heard that truth, didn't she? But so often we don't, because we're too focused on clutching to our tiny piece of truth that we hear nothing else. In fact, what others are saying is not even worth listening to, is it? If we live in this divisive way, instead of being open to the truths in everything, our little truth is just a tiny chip of the truth, a flake even. As the saying goes, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. And as the song goes, "You can wear a crown, it doesn't make you king. Beware the trinkets that we bring. For all that glitters is not gold. Beware the dangers of shiny things, perhaps the most dangerous being the truth." Or what we see as the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and the rest is not true. For the truth, if narrow told, is often misheard or misunderstood. Beware of anyone who offers easy answers to life's complex questions, like they have the whole truth in their hand. For more truth as a way of revealing itself, if allowed to do so, and if we have our senses open to it, we can take it in and absorb it in our being, make sense of it ourselves, and make it part of who we are. But we must always remain open. It's been revealed constantly, all around us, if our senses are open to it. The Buddha reputedly said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Now, while these things are not long hidden, we never see the whole of the moon, do we? Despite what the water boys said. We not the whole of the sun, and certainly not the whole of the truth. Like the sun, we can't really glimpse at it directly. Maybe it needs to be revealed slant. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. But none of us know the whole truth. We only get a glimpse of it, and even the small aspect that we get a glimpse of, we can't look at it directly like the sun. Any bit of light that we gaze upon has to be refracted. As the Epistle Paul said in his famous words on love, we only see into the glass dimly. No one sees the whole truth. It's important to remember this, and this ought to breed humility in us, which leads to an openness to more truth if we are humble enough to receive it this way. And it ought to open us more to one another, not separate us and divide us and see the other as separate and different from us. And if we can come together and listen to one another and have our ears open to absorbing each other's truth, more truth will be revealed than we knew was even possible. But we have to be open to it. We need to tell all our truth, but tell it slant. One of the greatest barriers to truth-seeking are our own biases. Often our biases are unconscious, actually. How easy it is to act and speak as if we know the whole of the truth, as if we gain some special knowledge. How many people speak of this? That we're the only ones that see through the glass fully, that the others are just deluded fools who know nothing. They've fallen for another con. We all have our preferences, the things that we like and the way that we like them. It's good to know ourselves. Sadly, though, sometimes we can become slaves to these very preferences. And these preferences can quickly become biases. And our biases can blind us, they can close us off to others and others' points of view. They can trap us in ignorance, deception, and illusion. When we are stuck behind them, no amount of reasoning, no amount of discussion will break through, for we know the truth. It seems that the only way to do so is to break down the walls of our own to begin to reveal truth, is to see our own biases and to break those walls down. But such biases can be so strong that instead of being open to new ideas, we seek ideas that confirm what we already believe. It's called confirmation bias. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's easy to seek out people and things that will just agree with us and confirm what we already believe, our own biases, to gather the people around us who agree with us, who see things in exactly the same way that we do, who don't argue, who don't offer an alternative point of view, who won't wrestle with our truth. It's more comfortable to live this way. It's less painful. It proves that we're right. Our egos love it. But you can't grow this way. It's a price we're unwilling to pay, perhaps. Growth seems to always come through pain and struggle, and that's not easy. But who said life was easy? Who said life was pain-free? Certainly the search for truth isn't. There is a price to pay for truth, as that story by Auntie de Mello taught earlier. Now, truth itself is an interesting word. Words often are, aren't they? It comes from a Germanic root, which also gives rise to another word, troth. As the vow of old said, I pledge thee my troth, which is a word that's used as people enter into covenant with one another. As Parker J. Palmer put it rather beautifully. A pledge to engage in mutually accountable and transforming relationship. To know in truth is to become betrothed, actually. To engage the known with one's whole self. To know in truth is to be known as well. So truth is a pledge made between people. And therefore it's relational in nature. It's a covenant of trust, is to speak truth in love. With consideration. So truth-seeking and therefore speaking should thus be relational and never divisive. It's not about arguing and proving the other wrong. It's about listening to and listening with open hearts, minds and souls. It's about understanding who is listening to what you're communicating and learning to be considerate of where they are coming from. Finding ways to communicate with them. Yes, it's about speaking the whole truth, but sometimes doing so slant from an angle, always remembering that we have more in common than what divides us, that we are all formed of the same flesh and the same spirit, always maintaining each other's worth and dignity, speaking and listening to truth in love. I believe this is the religion of Jesus that he brought to humanity, and yet it's the religion that we don't seem to speak of. He wanted to end the divisiveness and the tribalness of his age. And yet, nowadays, when people speak such truth, it's almost becoming in such a divisive way. So let's all tell all of the truth, but to do so slant at times. Let's speak with consideration. Let's speak the language of love with explanation kind. Let's open our hearts in love to one another. Listen with the ears of our hearts, for the language of the heart is truly universal. It will gently break down any barriers built by inconsideration. May the light of truth be revealed gradually, so that not one of us will be blind to it. May it dazzle gradually, so that not one of us will remain blind. I'm going to end now with some words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more. We can all bless, and we bless by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So let us return to our lives in the spirit of love, with open hearts, open minds, and open souls. May we live in and by the truth that will set us free. But may we never become slaves to this truth. May we speak our truth in love, recognizing the sacredness of ourselves, the sacredness of one another, and the sacredness of all life. And may the love of God go with us all, and may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. So in love and in peace. Amen.